So when you walk into the tackle area of a Bass Pro Shops and you see the line, that whole long aisle, it can be absolutely overwhelming with the amount to choose from. But I can tell you, doing this now for 30 plus years, competing on the tournament trails, line is probably one of the most important tools. It may not be as glamorous as all the pretty lures and all the different colors and the fancy bass boats. I know seeing that aisle can be a little overwhelming and kind of just puzzling, but at the same time, having choices and options is a great thing. It's just understanding what you need for what you're actually planning on doing. I'm here to break it down for you. And the best way to break down fishing line is understanding there's basically 3 different categories when it comes to line. And what I mean by that is we've got monofilament line, which has been around since I can remember. Then you've got braided line, and then you've got fluorocarbons. And basically, no matter what brand it is, there's tons of different brands out there. There's basically 3 different categories. You got your mono, your braid, and your fluorocarbons. Let's go into what's been around longer than I've been fishing, and that's the original monofilament line. It comes on rod and reel combos to this day. It's what I grew up fishing because that's basically all we had. So if you're a beginner, that's where I would start. I would say start with monofilament line, probably because it's the most versatile, the most forgiving, and it's what you can get away with a lot of different applications with. But let's talk the good, the bad, the ugly. Monofilament's been around forever. It's made by every manufacturer out there. As a price point, it's probably the most cost efficient, and it's good to learn from. Monofilament line has a tremendous amount of stretch to it. You don't realize how much stretch monofilament has until you start comparing it to a fluorocarbon line that has a little bit of stretch or a braid that has 0 stretch. Something else about monofilament that's a good and bad thing is it tends to ride high in the water column, meaning it's buoyant, so it tends to float. So that being said, it's great for shallow water fishing, top water lures, baits like that. Where it's not good is in deeper water applications, making long casts and trying to get good hook sets. So imagine a rubber band. If you've got a rubber band, the longer it is, the more it stretches. And it's kind of the same thing with monofilament line. So for close quarters, there's a little bit of stretch. So, you can get away with a little bit of stretch in close quarters, but you start making really long casts or fishing deep water, you've got all that stretch. So getting good hook sets in deep water or long casts can be a challenge. That stretch takes away from your sensitivity as well. So if there's a lot of stretch out there, sometimes it's hard to detect strikes that are in deep water or something like that. Another thing that is kind of a good and bad for monofilament line is it's more of a higher visibility line, meaning that's easier for us to see, but it means it's also easier for the fish to see as well. So if you're fishing clear water, that might be a deterrent and cost you some strikes. So there it is. Just as a recap though, monofilament is a good all-around line. It's going to be great if you're shallow water fishing. It'll work for top water fishing and all that. It's going to hinder you some in deeper, clear water, making long casts. But all around, it's a good line. 2 and 4 pound test for pan fishing, all the way to 80 and 100 pound fishing for catfish and saltwater and all that. So monofilament is a good all-around line. Next, braided line. People love braided line because it's considered kind of a super line. And the neat thing about braided line is it's super, super strong and super, super sensitive. But as you can see, braided line is very, very visible. So, it's one of those things that can be great if I'm actually watching my line. And braids come in all kinds of different colors. This happens to be a green. It's super, super strong, very abrasion resistant, and unbelievable strength. And it's small diameter. Kind of lasts forever. I mean, you can use braid throughout a whole season or even a couple years, depending on how much you fish, where monofilaments and fluorocarbons, a lot of times we're changing those sometimes every day in an actual tournament. So if you're a beginner, braided line is great because it'll last a very, very long time. But let's look at some of the pluses and some of the minuses. Like I said, it will last you a long time. It's super strong and it's super, super sensitive. But with that being said, it's very visible as well. Even even your darker colors, your greens, your blacks and all that, it's highly visible in the water. Another thing about braid is it tends to float or stay high in the water column. So that's where you almost have to go to a thinner diameter to fish it deeper as well. The pluses with braided line is it's super, super sensitive. So if you're new to fishing, understanding what a bait feels like in the water or what a strike feels like from a fish, braided line is great for that, for feeling a bait, feeling how the fish bite a bait and all that. And two, it's going to give you your best hookup landing ratio just because of the strength of the line as well. Great for heavy cover. That's where braided line probably excels over anything, is heavy cover, vegetation or brush or something like that. Braid is going to give you the most strength for getting those fish in. The other place that braided line excels and I think has changed the world of fishing is on spinning reels. I grew up fishing spinning reels with monofilament. Monofilament twist really bad. You have to put it on your reel a special way just so you don't get the line twist. Braided line gets rid of a lot of those line twists. Doesn't completely rid you of it, but it's going to knock down those line twists a lot. But then two is the sensitivity. And then the other big part is being able to use a very thin diameter. So it's going to give you maximum distance casting, and it's going to give you that sensitivity for fishing really light lures. But the big key here is on a spinning rod is you're using braid on a spinning rod, but then you're applying it with a monofilament or fluorocarbon leader. So looking back at braid is an awesome line, super sensitive, but also is highly visible as well. So braid's a great one as well. Definitely something to have in your arsenal. I use it a lot every day. Last but not least, let's go to my favorite. I think it's the most versatile all-around line, and I think it's the one that I use the most, and that's fluorocarbon line. Fluorocarbon line is probably the newest of these three. It's a different process of how it's made. Probably the biggest thing that makes fluorocarbon the most appealing is it's low stretch. It's not completely stretch free. So low stretch is going to give you way more sensitivity. And the other thing that's probably the biggest selling point with fluorocarbon line is it's basically invisible in the water. So that's going to give you more strikes from the aspect, especially in clear water, that the fish aren't seeing your line and shying away and not biting your bait. So fluorocarbon line, like I said, is low stretch as well. So it's going to give you a lot of sensitivity, and the strength of the line is incredible also. So here's a plus and minus about fluorocarbon as well, is it tends to sink. So if I'm fishing deep water, fishing baits, wanting them to get to their maximum depth, like let's say a deep diving crankbait or jerk bait, or if I'm fishing a bait out in 20, 30, 40 foot of water, it's going to give me the most feel and get the maximum depth out of those baits because it sinks. So fluorocarbon to me is probably the most all-around line because I can use it with the most variety of techniques that I have in my tackle box. I love this thing for moving baits, for spinner baits, bladed jigs, jig fishing, all that, all those different techniques. It's great for deep water. When I come to rigging up rods in my boat to go fishing, most of my rods are going to be rigged with a different sizes of fluorocarbon line. Smaller sizes, 8s and 10s. I'm putting on leaders with my braided line. I'm using them as leaders to my spinning rods. And then as you get up in lines, I'm 12s, 14s, 16s for my crankbaits, moving baits, jerk baits, stuff like that. And then if I get into my casting or flipping and pitching, I'm going with 15s to 20 to 25, even 30 pound fluorocarbons as well. So fluorocarbon is a super versatile line. It's got tremendous strength, small diameter, and very, very sensitive as well. So when you're walking down that aisle trying to decide what line to get, just ask yourself, what technique am I going to go out and fish? What am I going to tie on? And then what is the best line for that situation? So if you understand mono, fluorocarbon, or braid, you're going to have great results and you're going to catch more fish.